like to introduce you to Susanna Bodie, who's the Senior Strategic Advisor in Open Innovation and Innovation Design. She's been, I've known Susanna ever since I started the Australian Living Lab Innovation Network journey and the Living Lab Network journey in Australia, and we've done lots of magnificent things, talking about things like the Manifesto for Innovation for Europe. We've been part of the GSTIC conference in Brussels, and she's been really much a really huge supporter of the Australian Living Lab Network. She seeks ways. So Susanna's really quite passionate about co-creation. She's very passionate about working with people to create and look at ways to make innovation models and co-creation methodologies sustainable, business ready, and continuous growth stimulating. She's now a former Living Lab practitioner, but I don't think that's really necessarily the case, because I think she brings everything that she's learnt into her new role. And she's been the Associate Director of ENOL and has worked with ENOL's 170 active living labs. Quite a remarkable achievement, and working with these and those valuable networks has allowed Susanna to gain an appreciation for and a deep insight into the most recent research findings and future aims of the Living Lab, an open innovation phenomena which Europe is well known for. Recently, she diversified her portfolio by engaging closely with the entrepreneur community by supporting space-connected startups with business and incubation service. Susanna holds a French MBA, MAE degree in Management and Business Studies, and I think she's got a couple of languages that she speaks. She's previously obtained a Master in Science and Engineering and Management degree at the Technical University of Budapest, and has a strong focus on user-centered product design. Throughout her 10 years experience in project management coordination, she gained knowledge in multi-stakeholder and end-user engagement, citizen-driven and co-creation aspect of things such as future internet, smart cities and mobility, cross-border, cross-sector collaboration, game design and serious gaming, STEM learning, analytics, big data, climate change, design and creative industries, and more. And so there's what we're looking for tonight from Susanna is a bit of a breakdown of her journey and a bit of I suppose, an understanding of the value of living labs as an inspiration for the future. And I know that really appreciate your time. I know that you're busy moving house and also in terms of starting a new job. So thank you very much for coming, and I'll hand over to you, Susanna.
Thank you so much, Phil. What an introduction. When I was preparing for today, I was thinking, because I prepared something a little bit philosophical. I must say that it was also a nostalgic journey for me, now that you listed all these years and the memories from it. I was thinking, well, for you it's the evening, so actually maybe it's a nice way to setting up your evening for your spaghetti, maybe a glass of wine, and so on and so forth. But I will be happy to share some of my experiences, some of my thoughts, and also since the organizers, dear Sonia, Phil, Garrett, Amanda, they were very generous to me. They provided a very long slot, but I'm really a fan of interactivity. So on purpose, I try to keep some time also for questions and answers. I do not promise that I can answer everything, although Phil has listed quite a few things. But it's true that I interacted with all these type of projects along the years. All right, so I prepared some visual background for my presentation today. And sorry, I might be losing my voice every now and then. Hopefully I'm not getting hit by COVID. I'm just a little bit tired. First and foremost, could you confirm you see the right screen that actually you should see, the full screen?
It is beautiful, Susanna. And please, can I encourage everyone in the audience to post your questions along the way into the chat. I will then facilitate your questions once Susanna has completed, but you don't have to wait to post your questions, but we will answer them after the slides.
Thank you so much, Sonia. So already the first issue or challenge is tackled, because on Zoom, I often ended up showing the wrong screen. So it seems that slowly but surely I'm learning the techniques. So a warm welcome to everyone on the Conference of the Human Heart of Innovation 2021, hosted by my dear friends from the Australian Living Labs Innovation Network. I brought you a vibrant heart that I'm with you, at least in soul. This past year has been quite sad for most of us, I believe, and brought a lot of challenges to tackle. But today we are here just to ideate how to prepare for the future, for a better future, and how the methodology of Living Labs can help this journey. So I dared to bring or gave the title for my presentation or small intervention, Life as a Living Lab. Why? All out these years and with Enol, I've been interacting for the last 10 years, and I was part of the small Enol office for 6.5 years, and I still continue this journey. So it's actually my 7th year. And I heard the term Living Lab in million different contexts, really. Sometimes with the wrong definition, sometimes close enough. Nevertheless, it was used in many, many aspects. Service as a living lab, city as a living lab, school as a living lab, many, many more. And for today, when I was preparing my presentation, I thought of my journey, because that's what we agreed on with Phil, that I tell you how I ended up here and what I learned. So I was thinking that at the end of the day, most of our experience is an experiment, right? So, and we are the chief, we are the leaders, how this experiment turns out. And those who are familiar with the Living Lab concept, you might be familiar with this little table at the bottom of my slide set. These are the steps from Living Lab methodology, Living Lab project that has been defined in a PhD work of our esteemed colleague, Dimitri Schurman from IMEC Living Labs, and who identified these steps of ideation, conceptualization, prototyping, pre-launch, launch, post-launch. And the activities what you're doing during these sessions are exploration, experimentation, and evaluation. So when I was thinking about where I am today and what I've been going through, it seemed to me that I've been doing these steps over and over again through an iterative process, just like Living Labs do. And I'm quite sure I'm not the only one in a journey which was quite a labyrinth on the way, with quite some pivotings, which either I decided or I had to take. Listening to Phil, I don't have to repeat myself that I had sometimes decisions in my life when it comes to my studies or professional path, which did not necessarily click with each other. But now when I look back, it all makes sense. And just like in our personal and professional journey, pivoting is necessary and it's a good thing. Maybe today we can look at COVID as a big pivoting step, which is inspiring and motivating disruption in all areas of our life. So a little bit going to the nostalgic path, as Phil was mentioning, these are just some of the pictures from the many that I collected all over these years. But I must say that this network, and just in a moment you will hear that Enol, it's an international network, but we have many regional and sub-networks all over the world now. I had the pleasure to learn and exchange and collaborate, co-create over these years. There is insanely a lot of knowledge, know-how, opportunity, and a potential within the network and such connections. So I really encourage all of you to continue your Living Lab journey and also to interact with our international community as much as you can. But very recently, inspired by COVID, I decided to make a big step in my life and pivot significantly. I moved back to my home country, to Hungary. So right now I'm sitting in Budapest, simply just because I wanted to be again closer to my family and friends. I think for most of us, this said event and trauma aspired some changes and reorganizing our priorities in life. Nevertheless, although it was very difficult to sort of split from Enel, but I'm still very much collaborating with them, and I hope it will remain like that for a long time. I wanted to stay within the innovation domain, and all these learnings from the past, well, I don't know, more than 10 years and beyond, I wanted to invest in something which is leading towards the future and which is tackling societal challenges. So that's how I ended up collaborating with an organization, which is an innovation agency, an incubation center, who will launch its project with the European Space Agency very, very soon, and set up the Hungarian Business Incubation Center for space-connected startups. So the program pillars, of course, this is just a simplified visual of it, but if you think back of the Living Lab steps, which I just showed beforehand, they seem to be very, very similar. Ideate, incubate, and scale, right? So, of course, in this startup domain and world, we talk a lot more about entering to market and internationalization, investments, and so on and so forth. While with the Living Labs, we remain more at the pre-commercialization phase, or in some scenarios, we do an iteration about the project's product services maturity. Still, just one more word about the space industry. And well, on that, I think we can shake hands with Australia that none of the two continents are the leaders or the pioneers of this sector yet. Maybe, who knows what future brings. However, there is a very interesting shift of mindset and paradigm in this industry because, well, those who are following Netflix and had some time to spend during these last few months, there are some quite interesting documentaries about the space race and so on. And actually, the new space race is very interestingly changing these days. Is up. And it's formally forming globally, sorry. Like the former low risk taking strategies are now over, and now they are hitting Europe as well. Those who are wondering, I'm thinking about Elon Musk, of course, and SpaceX, which is a highly private industrial collaboration, let's say. And so this is happening in Europe as well, mainly backed by the defense sector for the moment, and also public projects protectionism. These are the first clients for the EU-based startups. Actually, in the past 10 years, the statistics show that the space sector has seen over 9 billion invested in it, roughly 60% of the space industry's investment. This is in part because the delivery mechanisms are now delivering enough capacity to meet demand. So what you put up in the sky and what you get out of the sky is now the new focus of the industry. And in Europe, the European Space Agency has been increasingly effective at providing significant amounts of grant funding to innovative startups, even as venture capital ramps or its own interest. So on that, those interested in this sector, I will be more than happy to hear your opinion and to look for collaborations, because this is something I will dig myself into quite intensively very, very shortly. But now let's go a little bit more back to the Living Labs, and also where this international network is coming from, where the Australian network is coming from, and what are the future goals. So Enel, those who do not know, the European Network of Living Labs, it's a non-profit association, and the aim is to promote and enhance user-driven innovation ecosystems. More precisely, the Living Lab concept globally. All over these years, since 2006, when the network started as a foundation, now we can count around 500 Living Labs who have been labeled through the Enel labeling system. And it means that they went through a quality assessment process. So it's not just signing up to the network, but in fact, it means that they have been verified, they proven to be mature Living Labs. When it comes to the annual milestones, I only picked a couple of dates because since 2006, as you can imagine, there have been quite some events in the network's life. But in 2018, something important happened when we signed a memorandum of understanding with the Australian Living Lab Innovation Network. And if I'm not mistaken, this was in Geneva on the Open Living Lab Days. And just the year after, we celebrated the 10th anniversary of the Open Living Lab Days, which is sort of a conference like yours, ideally in person. Last year in 2020, we had to host our first digital conference as well, but we managed to have quite some interactions, exchange knowledge and forge new collaborations, which I hope will be the case for you as well these 2 days. Now, what is the motto and the vision of the network? Empower everyone to innovate. This has been the goal since the very beginning, and the core focus about what Living Labs are for remain the same. So we talk about user-centered innovation ecosystems with the aim to enable systematic user co-creation approach and to visualize real-life scenarios for research findings. These Living Labs operate between the different actors in the innovation domain. As Gavin was mentioning, we call it the quadruple helix or multiple helix model, where you engage academia, you engage private sector, public sector, and importantly, the people. Also, in the introduction of Phil, you could hear about the Manifesto for Innovation in Europe. I highlight that this is a dynamic and open document. You can still contribute. Just to name some of the pillars which this manifesto highlighted is to enable societal engagement, cultivate open innovation and open science, bring together innovation and excellent research, and further results such as rethinking impact assessment, creating cross-cutting co-creation and transfer mechanisms, stimulate innovation leading to sustainable societal, economic, cultural, and ecological transformation worldwide. Last but not least, creating incentives for leveraging the collaborative innovation model on the global socio-economic stage by developing a joint mission approach for tackling global challenges. Please consult the manifesto for more details, and everyone can add their thoughts to this living document. Also, in the same context, we talked a little bit about social enterprises, which are becoming more and more, well, not only fashionable, but meaningful and important on our landscape, also within the Living Lab ecosystem, and also talking about the startup ecosystems. And because of their raison d'etre, so why they are there, basically we talk about organizations to create social or environmental impact through innovative products and services. So their reason to be define their form, let's say, and within the Living Lab and annual landscape, we encountered some projects which are still running or just ended, concluded. But again, also about these projects on our knowledge map, News Arena on our website, you find some toolkits which can be applied in many other social enterprises domains. So please visit these playbooks, toolkits, and policy briefs available on the annual website. A little bit reflecting on the future of research and innovation, and also since I know that you represent a broad research community coming from well-known universities in Australia and internationally. What we keep our eyes on these days, of course, is the upcoming program of the European Commission, the upcoming research and innovation program called Horizon Europe. In fact, the last updates are expected in February now, and if there are no delays, in April, the program will kickstart, and this will be the definitive program for the next 7 years. Interesting that, and we were pleased to know and hear that the program itself was built in a co-creative manner. So they invited a lot of stakeholders and citizens to consult the suggested pillars of the program. And also what we are delighted to see is that a big part of the program is mission-based. So there are specific targets and goals defined. When it comes to the mission pillars, you can see some of them in the clusters, that pillar 2. And where Living Labs will have an important role is pillar 3, European innovation ecosystems. Also, I'm aware, if you read a little bit about the program, that there will be many more international collaboration opportunities. So also, I think this will be a great opening to implement this MOU really in practice, and to find also some funding mechanisms so that the European and the Australian network can effectively collaborate in the near future. And with that, I'd like to frame my presentation, coming back to my earlier statement, and well, this is not my statement, as you can read, about life being an experiment, and the more experiments we make, the better. So I like to close my intervention with this nice quote I found and stole from R.V. Emerson. And I like to open the floor to answer some questions, to have a conversation if you may have. And thank you so much for your time and attention this evening hour. Oh, sorry, and my nose is, my voice is going away. So just about time to conclude my intervention.
Thanks so much, Susanna. This is really, really interesting, and what a wealth of experience and ambitions for the future. It's fantastic. I'm interested in regards to the Living Lab community. According to your experience with the community, which are the recurring domains the Living Lab methodology is mainly used at?
Right. Actually also relevant for your conference, the one which has been on the horizon for the longest time, and the one which has been the most relevant ever is the health domain. So also just referring back to the Horizon Europe missions, one of the mission is on cancer treatment. And proactively, the European Commission reached out to our network and asked our stakeholders to collaborate with them directly to help defining the missions, and also to work on projects together. So on that, I invite you, because this is without no borders and no limits. ENOL has an action-oriented task force on health, which is led by our various team member from Thessaloniki, Thessal, Living Lab, Dokimos Konstantinidis, and he is directly in touch with the Commission, with colleagues from the Health Action-Oriented Task Force. So please, if you have not done yet, do so, and you will be invited to have these talks directly with the Commission representative. So health, certainly I highlighted. Beyond this, we have 4 more vertical domains. Social impact and digital rights, which is also quite significant for the upcoming Digital Europe program. And some of you may have read or heard about the Living in EU Declaration, which is a political declaration about upscaling digital solutions in urban environments based on specific priorities and principles, which the mayors, quite some mayors, around 100 now signed all over Europe. Then we have social impact of artificial intelligence, needless to say, also becoming quite important and significant. Energy and environment, again, speaks for itself. And we have a group around rural living labs, and particularly the agricultural domain, and agroecology is becoming more and more relevant. Just last year, we won coordination and support action with the important stakeholders from this domain, where the idea is to set up a support network for agroecology living labs themselves. And last but not least, 2 more upcoming bottom-up groups, mobility and the creative industries. So yeah, but there are more, of course.
There are more questions now. There is a question from Judith, and she first thanks for your inspiring talk.
Thank you.
The question is, how do you perceive us here in Australia could link with the NL community? For example, development sectors. Are there specific themes, the health focus that you mentioned, and which we can contact the NL Health representatives about?
Yes, I will just, after my intervention, I will put it in the chat window where you can contact the representative directly. And indeed, what they did actually recently is that within the group, those who signed interest to join this group, they identified the most pressing areas within the health sector, what the living labs who are part of this task force, let's say, are interested in. So that's their first target. And I can tell you that the leader of this group, Evdokimos, he's a quite pragmatic person, so a real doer. So he is an academic, by the way. So it's not only that he's a pragmatic person, but yeah, there are actions behind the words as well. So I will put the contact just in a moment. And I'm looking at the mobility group. What is it about? Well, it is also a perfect moment to join the mobility group because it has been set up 1 or 2 months ago, more or less. So it's very recent, and they defining right now the shape of the group. Well, coincidentally, the leader of the group is also someone from Thessaloniki, but not the same person. They have a living lab called Tesmal. Those who were on the living lab event in Thessaloniki could visit their mobility center, which is directly run by the city and supervises all the infrastructural developments around the city of Thessaloniki and regionally too. And for the mobility, another thing to say is some of you might be familiar with the EIT, European Institute of Innovation Technologies. They are linked to the European Commission, and they realize the value and benefits what living labs can bring. And now they are setting up a living lab mobility network. So also with them, we collaborate, which of course, amongst other things, will help getting to more funding, but also just to have cross-border and transnational collaborative projects. So to learn from each other and exchange on best practices.
Thank you. There is a question from Gareth. Gareth, would you like to ask your question yourself, please?
Sure. So thinking about the conference earlier on, early on, the notion of zebras were mentioned over unicorns. Obviously, a lot of startup kind of programs in living labs have kind of focused on startups in the more traditional sense, not necessarily always the unicorn ambition, but the more traditional sense. I'm wondering where you see, particularly given your current moves, where you see that movement, the sort of zebra movement and the things that follow it progressing.
Yeah, well, very interesting. I must say that it's still a little bit ahead of me, but I already have an impression talking to some of the startups who already did the first 2 years of their project within the space domain, and those who are about to apply for the program, which is a 2 years incubation process. And I don't think that I will surprise you too much when I say that the first thing is not experimentation and co-creation or end user engagement, what they are thinking about. So I think that we have a lot to do for them because and of course, I don't want to generalize, but unfortunately, experience shows that the majority of these startups are not realizing how important it is to focus on the needs of the end users. Now, of course, within the space domain, it is a bit specific, because in a lot of cases we talk about technology transfer, right? So things which have been discovered for trillions of dollars and euros and so on one space mission, hopefully our friend Perseverance radar will bring some new results from Mars. But the idea is that all these findings from research and technology can be implemented to the daily lives. And when the startups are thinking about how to re-implement and reuse these innovations and technologies, the first thing is not the end user in their mind. So here I see a little bit of gap with the Living Lab concept itself. But thankfully, they focus a lot on societal problems. And what I experience now is that what we tend to hear a little bit, I think, from the US experience is that it's very much focused on income and how to scale very quickly, especially when we talk about unicorns, right? That's the main thing. And of course, well, money will always be a motivator for all entrepreneurs, but more and more I see that the societal part is becoming more important, and also the engagement of the end users, not only from the usability perspective, but also about the reception of the idea is becoming very important, because I don't know about Australia, but in Central Eastern Europe, unfortunately, the maturity of the citizens and people, they have this idea about space research is about sending a rocket or an astronaut to outer space, right? And it's really not it anymore. I mean, it's fantastic, great, a lot of money spent on it, but it's not anymore the main reason or goal. Therefore, it's important also to communicate and educate people. So something which I did not talk about is that also beyond the Business Incubation Center, we will be launching another project called Ezero, which is about teaching primary school students and also the teachers to be able to motivate the students to go towards STEM learning and STEM pathways in their careers, and also to be more open to space industry and space research and have a better holistic understanding what is it about. So I think Living Labs have a really important role there. And as you said, that's something I talk about with my colleagues and the annual board as well, that maybe this is a new opportunity also for the community to look at, because when working with entrepreneurs, it was more the focus on SMEs who have a prototype idea, and then they want to have a safe entry to market. Well, startups are nothing safe, right? They don't think about anything safe. So that's something where I think we can, or Living Labs can play a role. Sorry, it was a bit of a long.
We have one more question from Grace. She also thanks for your presentation, and you were mentioning in your talk incorrect uses of the term Living Lab. Due to time, can you maybe give one or two very quick examples for that, please?
Yes, sure. Okay, so one of the things I can certainly relate to about being incorrect is, and there were some articles, critical articles about amassing data on the people. So Living Lab experiments are not only about using the end users, right? Or the people just to take data source out. Unfortunately, there are cases like that. So it's about engagement, so not usage of the people for validation purposes. This is one where I think in often cases, not scientifically, but in practice, when projects are run, it's not implemented the Living Lab methodology the right way. And another wrong way of using it, I think, is the interpretation of this quadruple helix collaboration. So a real collaboration is not just that you are aware of academia A and you are aware of public institute B, but you effectively work together. You bring people around one table and you, well, ideally you don't force them, but somehow you get them to work and co-create together new solutions and services. So I think it's the wrong term, well, sometimes also wrong term, but wrong implementation even more. And also because Living Lab, the term became, again, very, very popular, particularly for funded projects. It is used as a fashionable word without a real meaning behind. And that's something that we've been not fighting for, but campaigning, lobbying for, that this evaluation is taken seriously also by the EU institutions or others, that there is the reason why we do the screening of the Living Lab in constellations around the world.
Thanks so much, Susanna. I'm sure we could keep on talking, and we would love to. We have other speakers too. Phil posted a question on the very first, on a scale on 1 to 10, how relevant is the Living Lab experience in your new professional mission?
I can give 2 answers for that. One is that how relevant I feel right now, how much I can immediately use. It would be 4. How much need there is to be used, 10. So there needs to be this shift in understanding of startups and how they also appreciate such methodologies.
Thanks so much, and all the
Thank
best also for your voice. It was lovely to have you here, and yeah, hopefully we can see each other soon in person again.
Thank you so much for the invitation, and really enjoy and make the most out of your conference. I will still be here for a little bit and respond to some of the questions and give contact details, and great luck for you tomorrow, and hope to see you in person very, very soon.